go ahead and call to order the Waxhaw Town Board meeting work session for July 26, 2016. I'll take a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Mayor Pro Tem Hunt will be here momentarily. He's in transit. I will also alert all the members at the dais and then those of you out there. You notice we got rid of the big boxes in front here. We have speakers in the ceiling. When we put the speakers in the ceiling, we noticed that the projection unit went out, so that's getting repaired. So we're back to one screen for tonight while that's getting repaired. But as we get used to coming closer and sitting back, they're testing it out today. But hopefully you can hear more in the back now. Good. We wouldn't want to disturb you though, Wendy, so. Okay, with that, first item of business, comprehensive plan status and final steps. This is Lisa McCarter's presenting, and Lisa, take it away.
Okay, I just wanted to give a brief update of where we are with the comprehensive plan. I'm going to go through the current status, the next steps, and the link between the comprehensive plan and the new Unified Development Ordinance. Back in January 2015, we began the process of the comprehensive plan. We had a steering committee kickoff meeting, then we had 12 steering committee meetings, 3 days of public meetings, a joint town board and steering committee meeting, and then the first draft was available in September of 2015. After that, we had 2 days of public meetings, and then a joint town board, planning board, and steering committee meeting. The second draft came in February 2016, and then the final draft came in May of 2016, which is the one we have right now. So moving forward would be town board consensus on outstanding issues, and then the next step after that would be it would go to planning board for recommendation, and then the final step would go to town board for adoption. So how the comprehensive plan relates to the new UDO is that the comprehensive plan serves as a guiding document in the creation of the new Unified Development Ordinance. Studio Cascade is currently working on the comprehensive plan addendum, or the bridge document, that will include 3 components: the vision, the implementation policy framework, and the future land use plan. The new Unified Development Ordinance is a large part of the implementation of the comprehensive plan and is currently being created by Studio Cascade. So with that, if you have any questions for me.
So just a point of clarity, bringing the comprehensive plan across the finish line is on us, the town board. Commissioner Stewart, Commissioner Burrow, and myself presented some comments a month or 2 ago. It's now time for us that question some things, had some suggestions, et cetera. It's now time for us to talk those through on August 9th, finalize them, decide what we're going to accept or not, and what steps that we're going to take to complete this from a policy standpoint. It's really tied to some of the champion work. So for instance, Commissioner Stewart and I were talking yesterday that, she's working on some of the work with the town attorney, and we were talking about how it would be great if at the end of every legislative session the town attorney went through the legislative action that impacts the municipality and updated us, and then came back to us in the September timeframe so we can do the quick fixes to the UDO and keep it current. We shouldn't be lagging behind, and that when somebody brings it forward, oops, that was the state law changed 2 years ago or 1 year ago, et cetera. It's tied to the economic development. It's tied to some of the things we're going to talk about later, Main Street, et cetera. And then there's some very specific policy stuff that was in there. We need to get this done. We're scheduled to get it done on as a work session August 9th. So then Studio Cascade can have what we think is our end game, so they can actually build that UDO and fine tune what they're working on to meet our policy. But Lisa wanted to come and say, here's where we are, and then have me make the plea to, we really got to be ready on the 9th to go through all the comments, finalize this, and bring it across the finish line. It's time for it. So, thoughts, comments, questions, reading assignments already, all that good stuff. But all right. Thank you, Lisa. Next up, Mr. Don Fisher, Board and Committee candidates for appointment. Just as an FYI, we deferred the decision on June 28th, 2016 for appointments to tonight. And so we have to make those appointments to the board. And the Organization Advisory Committee did their work over the last month and a half to bring forward a set of candidates. Mr. Fisher?
Thank you.
No,
No, he's on vacation.
Mayor Maher, Commissioners, Manager Wood, thank you for the opportunity to represent the OAC and the work that this group has accomplished here to present to you today. A big thank you goes to the committee members, Dave Kobziak, better advance this, Terry Settle, who happens to be here today, Terry Haynes, and Earl Cook. Earl also is here today. I cannot thank enough the town staff, Melody Schuler, town clerk, Kathy Queen, deputy clerk, and Kurt White, the downtown development manager, for the work they put in and the organization that we have started as each time goes by to improve the process that we're working on. And they put in countless hours and just totally helped bring this thing to fruition. Like I said, just can't thank them enough. I'd like for you to take a look at some of the applicant considerations that we looked at. We looked at the application as it was when we first started this process. And with town approval, it's been revised and updated. It will continue to be worked on as things come up and things that we find. We were very excited to see the fact that we got a number of resumes from applicants. We had professional, quality applicants that applied this time more so than times past. We looked at their skill sets, and I have to say that at this time, a big thank you goes out to, again, the town staff for the book I've got here, the Waxhaw Board and Committee Orientation Manual. That was of so much help, and the quality work that went into it will be used and updated as time goes by for the town. We looked at any town or municipality experience, wherever they might have lived, were they on the board, whatever the municipality, whether it be county, state, etc. We looked, like I said, at the board's committee operation manual, and then we held applicant interviews. We talked with the chair and town staff, different discussions with different people. We looked at social media presence. We had OAC group reviews and discussions. What we feel we have before you is a recommendation of qualified candidates to fill positions. The applications, let's look at what happened. vacancies. We received 23 applications for 5 boards and committees. Vacancies, we fill 14 of the 17 from the 5 boards and committees. The reason that 3 are unfilled is because the quality of the application or the skill set or meeting time, whatever, could not be worked out with the applicants. So we feel like we will still go back and we will review some things after we find the final, what's going to happen with Main Street, and fill those other 3. Like I said, the Main Street applications were not included in this review. So the book that I passed out to you is the appointment. First sheet you've got there is the board committee recommendations, the committee, the length of term, and who the person is. As you start there with the ABC board, excuse me, if you look at the ABC board, there's a tab there that says ABC. You'll see the application for Greg Abbott and for George Rivas to reappoint them with terms ending 6/30/2019. On the Board of Adjustment, we have 1 position open. We're not real sure what's going to happen with the decisions y'all might make, but we went ahead and assigned 2 positions. Art Meyer, new applicant, 6/30. Reappoint Tracy Westlick with a 6/30 date. And then we've got 1 that is open or to be filled for 6/30/2018. On Historic Preservation, on 426, we filled a 2017 spot. Kelly Lang Ramirez took that spot. The commissioners voted and approved that appointment. We've got, want to reappoint Art O'Donnell through 2019, and then we have an open spot with no applicant that meets the qualifications per the HPC requirements. On the Planning Board, outstanding applicant, James Stuvey. I met with him for about an hour and a half. He's an outstanding applicant, does a lot of work with the county, does a lot of work with the town on some things. He is a true winner there. We reappointed Michael Crimer. I'd gotten a rumor that Michael did not want to be chairperson. I did call and visit with him and talk to him about what we were doing, and he said, I don't know where that came from, that's false. He said, I hope to be reappointed and also to be able to chair going forward. Both of those 2 go 2019. On 6/30/2019, it was recommended by the group to take the alternate Kurt Pritchard to a full-time position. Now, I picked up some information, and I want to bring this to the forefront, that in our committee, there were some comments about attendance. We went to Deputy Clerk Kathy Queen. She pulled the attendance information up and looked at it. I called Kurt Pritchard, and Kurt told me, he said, I did not, or I missed some meetings. I'll be honest with you. He said, my work took me away. He said, I feel like right now my daughter's going to college, my work's slowing down, and said, I want to continue. I want to be a part of the planning board, and I want to work to make the planning board better. And I said, well, are you telling me that your work's slowing down to where you can do it? He said, yes. We recommended a reappointment. Now, I also want to call to your attention one thing. There are rules and regulations on the planning board. Pursuant to the manual that was approved by the board, if you go to page 66, rules of conduct for members. 6.1 says members of the planning board may be removed by the town board for cause, including violation of rules stated herein. 6.2 says that in order for the planning board to carry out its duties and responsibilities, it is necessary for all members to attend the meetings. Now, prior to this, the former chair would call the alternates and say, we don't need you here. We've got a quorum. If any member is absent 3 consecutive meetings, the chairman may direct the secretary to notify such members in writing of his or her absences, and if such member fails to attend the next meeting, the planning board then, by majority vote of the remaining members, may request that the position be vacated and also request that a replacement made by the town board. So, visited and talked, a letter had not been sent, no phone calls have been made, or anything like that. So we have not followed the rules that needs to be done in order for us to take action on this, in our opinion. If we're going to go by the set of rules that we have here. So therefore, we are recommending that we consider him. He has been forewarned, if you want to call it that, because we had a lengthy discussion on it. I had a lengthy discussion with the chair about this. He agreed that this had not been followed.
Mr. Fisher, how long was Kurt Pritchard an alternate?
I don't have that with me, sir. I owe you an apology.
Was he an alternate under the old chairman, where they were getting calls and then? So he was then, okay. Okay.
Just was that transition.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, I appreciate it. So therefore, that's the reason we made that decision. The next one, we want to appoint for 2019 alternate length of term, Sean Morris. Sean is a dynamic individual. He lives in Lawson. He's been on HOA board. Dave Kobziak was very excited when he filled out the application, and we feel that he is very strong, has the capability to become a leader in the town on the board aspect of the planning board. Then the other alternate, 2018, we visited. A couple of us visited with Art O'Donnell. Art highly feels the qualifications to do this job. We're recommending him for 2018, and we discussed that term with him. So that's where we're at on the planning board. On the Parks and Cultural Advisory Board, 2019 reappointment is John Senna. The next position is Betsy Williams, outstanding lady, very well thought of. Our Director of Parks and Rec, Natalie Jackson, could not say enough good things about her. So we feel like Betsy is a good candidate there. Again, for 2019, we want to appoint Tony Colombo. Tony wanted to get involved with the town. He's interested in parks, and he wants to make some things happen. And so I think he is also a good candidate to fill that position. However, we do have one position at the end of 2017 that is open, and we will look at some candidates there as we go forward and try to have this filled, hopefully by the next meeting, that we can get this on the consent agenda. So with that, I will take any questions. I will do my best to answer them. If not, we'll call my two helpers here, and they can help me. So I'll turn the floor back to, yes, ma'am.
I noticed on, for the historic preservation and the PCR, or no, the planning board, did you have one person assigned to both
That's correct.
boards? And doesn't our procedure say that one person cannot, or am I mistaken? Cannot?
Not get a negative on that when I ask the question. And the other thing we've got is Art.
It's up to us whether or not we want to do that.
It's not in the procedure? Okay. I thought it was. That one person per board, not two
That's
boards.
preferred, but if we want to, that the board has to make that call, not the OAC. That's
This is what, the reason we're doing this, he has got a lot of qualifications, is one of the mainstay for the historic preservation. A lot of money's been spent on him going to seminars, things of this nature. And then in a discussion with the team, you look at arts qualifications, et cetera, he also can step in to that planning board position, highly, highly qualified, an engineer, et cetera, and we think that he was ideal for that. And we probably talked, Mr. Cook and I interviewed him probably for about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours.
Thanks.
We will do what the board tells us to do.
Comments, questions?
Someone will come up when we talk about the planning board. Same kind of questions. I'll wait.
Well, no, this is a part of, I mean, if the candidate, are you comfortable with the candidates?
Yes.
That's all, okay.
Yeah.
'Cause
If we,
that's all.
we need to go back to the drawing board. We will go back to the drawing board on any of this. And going forward, we will continue to improve on this. We will continue to have the applications like this presented to you. The other thing I do have to ask is, I was asked to mention, please turn your binders back because they recycle them. So none of you requested that. So anyway, but if there's no further questions.
I mean, well, hey, slow down. Commissioner Stewart raised a good question. Is the board comfortable having a candidate, specifically this candidate, on two boards? That's something that we make a conscious decision on. So I wanted to put it out there.
In this case, yes, I am. And I think that, first off, I'd really like to say that in going through what you did, Don, Earl, and everybody else, it begins to show how we need to be a little more organized, or how you were much more organized in getting to the bottom of things that just were kind of being ignored. And that's a lot of the questions that'll come up again with the planning board you've already visited. I mean, I was concerned about the attendance, and you answered those questions because you actually had a conversation and took care of it, so thank you.
You're welcome. But let me say this, it is not me. If the other people that are on the OAC, that's the team.
Correct.
They worked.
Right.
Resident requirements, they dug in. The interviews we had on historic preservation, Terry had books out there going through rules, regulations, et cetera. This was not taken lightly, Commissioner.
No.
It was not taken lightly. And I just want you to know that I'm so proud of this team. Proud of it.
I think the common thread's been critical thinking applied to this process. Thank you.
Is that information all included in this binder
Do
from
what?
from your interviews? Is that information included in the binders?
That's all.
Okay.
As I
Just their
stand-
applications.
And I stand to be corrected. All
Okay.
of that is basically confidential. It may or may not be, I don't know. But I know I didn't turn any of my notes in, whether they were good or bad. I know that in the corporate world, that, if you make notes on an application, it's destroyed, because you can't have it in case anybody challenges you. So I can't speak for the other as to what they had on their applications.
Okay.
Didn't have a secretary at the meeting or anything like that. This was all discussed openly.
So I have one other question. The reappointment for the planning board, and you said that they were, how many meetings did this person miss?
There was 6 meetings that he did not attend
As an alternate.
as an alternate.
But we didn't, he was not, but he did take the training, and he was aware of what the rules were, correct?
If he took the training or not, I do not know. I was not,
Okay, I'm just asking.
I do not know. I would hope that everybody did take the training.
Brenda,
Wendy would have a record of that.
when we get to the planning board part of this, one of the things I'm going to ask you is there is language in the rules of procedures that doesn't require the alternate to be there. It requests them to be there. Big difference.
Just asking.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Tim Hunt, you had a question?
Good afternoon. So, I know I understand we're here for the appointment or reappointments to the boards. is it worth this board giving direction or instruction to the OAC to give a broad look at all of our boards and make all of the procedures, all of the rules consistent across? I know that, I think I've had some discussion with Commissioner Burrow about the appointment of the chair versus the chair being chosen from the group. I know the ABC board, I believe, currently chooses from their group. Would we be interested in pursuing or looking at the chair being approved from this board or appointed from this board versus letting the groups do it?
So one of the things we have to do at our next meeting, given what's happening with Main Street, is have the OAC structured to report directly to this board and then give them those rules of procedure. Because they've been taking direction from Main Street. That's where they landed after the first restructuring, and now, it's rather straightforward to set them up. Chaplain's recommendation was to get through this, disband the other 3 Main Street committees, and then next time we'll have the rules of procedure. And yeah, it makes sense.
Okay.
To give them all sorts of directions, because it's elevating the game substantially, I would think.
So typically, it's the committee that votes the chair in now? Is that,
Typically, yes, the individual committee votes the chair, yeah.
That's what it said.
And of course, with the ABC board and I believe what the planning or the Board of Adjustments, you run into statutory problems or statutory requirements, so we'd have to work around or work through those also.
That's correct.
Any other questions?
I want to compliment you. This was Don's first attempt at PowerPoint, too. He did a
You know,
great
You
job.
could have gone all day, as I told some people. I've always had a secretary, but I did it, thanks to Melody and thanks to Kurt. So they transposed it over to the
21st century.
Yeah.
input for the town.
Too late. All right, thanks, Don.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Warren, what time did Jim say he was going to be here? I just want to be cognizant of that. 4:30?
Yeah, after 4 o'clock.
Okay. Okay, next up, Main Street Board of Directors. We've had some discussion about that, and Kurt, who couldn't be here, provided information to each of us at the informational meetings, and a number of questions came up that warrant some discussion on our part. So, about the rules of procedure. Just a little bit of a background, because there was some confusion, or is some confusion about Main Street, given that a kind of a map was provided out of, and I'll come back to that, but Main Street, let's be clear, it's an economic development engine. Their focus from a funding standpoint can be around a number of very clear things. Infrastructure, which, and specifically on infrastructure, it's focused on broadband, which again would enable economic development, roads and rail. They can extend into water and sewer, but for us that would mean that we would have to partner with the county, et cetera. Their focus from a real estate standpoint is commercial buildings and vacant commercial buildings. There's some very specific ground rules when you're looking at grants and programs from them as to square footage around those vacant buildings and commercial buildings. So this is not housing or anything like that. And I think it's important to be clear about that. Their solution funds are geared towards, again, commercial / mixed use, but their metrics for grant approval and success are around job creation. And again, so it's very economic development oriented, very clear what it's about in that vein. We inherited, as we were looking at it, a map that dates back to 2009. And I think if we decide to put this board in place, one of the first things we have to ask them to do is to go back and redo the map to reflect economic development and the intent of what Main Street is. It covers a lot of space and a lot of ground, and it's quite frankly confusing when you look at it. It almost mirrors the National Historic District map, which includes a lot of things, and we need to be clear and precise on the direction. My personal opinion as to what we're expecting that group to do, and then have them bring that map to the town board quickly to make sure that we're in lockstep with them and support them on the commercial side of this. We got to clear up. We got to clear up some of it, just like everything else. We're clearing up confusion from the past, and that's one from 2009, and it needs to be, my opinion, cleared up. There was some specific questions that were raised, and I'm just going to go through. If you've got the book where it says rules of procedure. First one, Article 2, Section G. My suggestion is, let's be clear there, it's applications for commercial property located in downtown, and not just leave it vague to any property. And I'm stating these because basically I think we've got enough discussion, hopefully we'll have discussion here, but enough changes that we need to get these back to Kurt and then have them corrected for the next meeting. It's not that it's a bad idea, it's just that we need to clean these up and make sure we're all precise. Yes, John?
When you refer to commercial property, are you talking about the structure itself? I mean, if it's an old home that has a business in it, does that apply? Or
Well, we need to define that, but I would trust our, and back to the map, there is no statutory authority with that map. There's no zoning authority with that map. And so we would have to go back to how's it defined commercially, whether or not it's defined for commercial use or not.
because there are some residents or home structures that have businesses in them, so.
That's a fair point. Second item is, let's have a discussion around Article 5, the organization member Section 1 membership B. The Waxhaw Town Board will name one member of the town board. And obviously, if there's questions about other pieces in here, let's raise them so we get it right. One member as an ex officio member without a vote. So originally, what came from Main Street was 0 ex officio members. They were pushed to 1, and the question was raised, why not 2? So let's have a discussion on that at this point as to what's the right amount. As a point of reference, the only other place that we as a town have used an ex officio member was on the Waxhaw EDC, I believe. And we had 1 member, and their role was very, very specific, which is what it would be here, is that you're there to advise and counsel on town policy and bring policy level questions back to the town board, not there as in any other role, certainly not as a voting member. The voting membership really lies with the town board in terms of approval of the any programs and plans. Discussion.
Steve, do you see any difference between an ex officio member on this group, for this group, and a liaison to any other board or committee?
I'm on 3 different boards, each of which has an ex officio member, and they have a very defined role, and it's not a liaison role. They're very focused on the policy side of and holding that board accountable to the policy side. Saying stop, you're not abiding by town policy or state policy or whatever, but their role is very, very specific. I know on the Waxhaw EDC, Commissioner Mike Stewart sat on it for a while, and then I sat on it, and they would come at us with very specific policy questions, not not liaison related at whatsoever. That's just my experience. The other one I'm most familiar with right now is I sit on a board, but the League of Municipalities, and the executive president is an ex officio member, and he only comments when asked. I mean, basically, we have a specific question on the administration of this insurance policy. What's the policy? And that's how they use them, and that's how he participates in this case. So it's very narrowly defined. My feeling on the liaison, and I'm not trying to dominate this, that I think we missed something on the role of the program director, something this important, economic development. I think we should be asking for the program director to report to the town board quarterly at the board meeting. Tell us what the heck's going on with, if economic development is the key, is quarterly the right amount, but basically giving us an update. If they're going after solution funds from Main Street, this whole board needs to be, be cognizant of that and supportive or guiding on that kind of stuff. So, but that's my opinion. It's just one person's thought as I thought about it, because I think it's a very fair question: is what's the right amount, and then how do you really run this thing, knowing that the reason we're doing this is to get out of the mode of basic committee and into the mode of really some tough work ahead for Main Street. But so
Would it also warrant the inclusion of the town attorney? In other words, does this Main Street Board of Directors rise to the level, or maybe even above the level, of the Planning Board or the Board of Adjustment? Which is not a problem.
Statutorily, no.
Right.
Which is a good thing when you're getting into maps and
Right.
boundaries and stuff. However, one of the skill sets I believe that Kurt presented to us was real estate, attorney, et cetera. So whether or not it's the town attorney, am I not speaking into the microphone, Nick? Too close. Just trying to keep Wendy alert back there, that's all. So I think that's something that as a board, when the candidate list comes together, that's something
Okay.
that the board can look at. And I know Commissioner Stewart's looking at the role of the town attorney and how best to use them. I'd look to her and her work to say, does that make sense there? I mean, I know.
From my point of view, I think this is a very important board because of the results that we can expect from it. We've sort of floundered a little bit with economic development, and if we can put a point on this and really accomplish some real economic development, then I would just be in favor of giving them as much help as possible, because they can do things that they can get in trouble faster than we can even on the planning board. They're going to commit to things.
So the ex officio member doesn't necessarily have to be a member of the board. Is that what we're saying?
No.
We have the option of choosing.
I would add, in my mind, does it benefit the town to have the town attorney sit in on some of these? Should we consider that kind of guidance that we make available to this board? Because it is now increased in its responsibility and the good effect it can have on Waxhaw. So provide it with as much backing and as much resource as possible.
I think what you said, Commissioner Burrow, is some of those, not all of them. If we have them at every meeting, I think we're spinning our wheels. If we have them on selected meetings, yes, that is correct. But I don't think we need to have legal representation at every meeting. I think some of those. And I think that should be called in by the Main Street manager to make that decision.
I don't know how, if we make a decision, I guess we do have to make a decision as far as whether we use the attorney in each meeting, but, like you said, Commissioner Fitzgerald, how do you pick and choose which one that they go to? Because we could go 2 or 3 meetings and not much happen, and then we have a meeting where he wasn't there and things blow up. So I don't know how you choose he's there at one, every other one, or every 3. But I do think that there needs to be at least 2 liaisons from this board sitting in the meetings as a non-voting, just like we do with any board or any other committee, whether it be the mayor and a commissioner or 2 commissioners in an alternating fashion. I think that's critical to our information gathering and what we understand is going on in that meeting from month to month.
I still think the Main Street manager is kind of the guy that runs the program. He is responsible for the program. He's responsible directly to the town manager and to the town board, pretty much. And I think he should make the call when he needs legal representation. When he looks at the agenda for that meeting, he will know whether he needs legal representation or not. I mean, because otherwise, if it's just selecting lights on Main Street, you don't really need legal representation, I don't think. Maybe you do.
Yeah, I can tell you at the one that I'm on with the League of Municipalities, as a board, we make a specific request to have the attorney present at the next meeting. We have to, and consciously say, and here's the topic that we expect that individual to cover. And now those meetings are 3 hours long, and we try to get it down into 6-minute increments to keep the cost down, basically. But hey, you're coming in for a very specific purpose to cover this, not just be there. So, again, that would be a burden we put on, and a good one, but a burden we put on the manager and the Main Street manager and that board to say specifically, if you're going to request, you got to request it and make sure it comes through the proper channels to get them there, kind of thing.
And I'm to the acceptance of what Commissioner Stewart said. 2 liaison is okay, but I think one should be a primary and another one be an alternate in case the primary can't make it, basically. I mean, you don't need 2 commissioners at every meeting. You need them basically because shouldn't be speaking too much unless you're directed to speak. You should be listening, is the way I understand it.
Okay?
So does that mean we're going to change the ruling of 2 liaisons per? But it's an open meeting, so any commissioner can go. Anyone can go to an open meeting, correct?
Correct. We would change these to reflect 2.
Okay.
Is it just the difference between liaison and non-voting member? So does the non-voting member come out and you're saying you would appoint 2 liaisons?
Well, to me, we're defining 2 ex officio members, because
Not liaisons per
Yeah.
se, specific. Ex officio is a different
right,
level.
with agreement as to who's the primary and the secondary. So the next item when looking at this, Commissioner Burrow raised the question about membership, item section 1D. Any member who misses 30% of the early meetings may be replaced by the Waxhaw Town Board. And is that in conflict with section 5, attendance at meeting, any members who misses more than 3 consecutive regular meetings and blah, 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 shall by that fact cease to be a board member. These 2 are actually, I checked with Chaplain, these 2 are in there for a reason. If the town board doesn't act, the board of directors can act and basically get to, you're no longer a voting member because you're failing to attend, and they can take that direction. So if we don't act, or it doesn't get brought to us, if you will, and because it says we may be replaced, that's why they were in there. They wanted, the feeling was they need to be able to move quickly on, hey, this person is not participating, and the level of involvement in this is elevating, like the planning board. We're we're elevating the game. If we're talking about with investors to revitalize a portion of downtown and you haven't been here, you know,
Yeah.
we're going to make that decision quick at the board. So that's,
Right.
it was a great question. I questioned it as well, but that's what it was in here for.
It's the same kind of thing that should be in
Yeah,
the planning board, the board of adjustment, and probably even the ABC board.
correct.
Okay.
And then, since Warren, you're taking notes?
Yeah.
Okay. The second section 6 becomes section 7. Section 7 becomes section, on the, we repeated section 6 in a numbering. Conflict of interest, execution of work. You see them?
Yeah.
We just need to renumber all these. And then the last one that came up in discussion was this program director, and whether or not we want to establish, and we don't have to do that today, but we want to establish a regular reporting mechanism of the, and how do you feel about that, since he reports to you?
I would prefer that the chairman make that presentation.
Okay, that's fair.
Well, he would obviously, the program manager would obviously be here, but that would be on the,
Chairman?
yeah, initially, when we set up the liaisons were to report out the activities. But I think we've kind of gone away from that. But I think in this case, the chairman would be the appropriate person to make the monthly or quarterly report, or however y'all
Okay.
set it up.
And can we clarify, the program manager is going to be the current position of Kurt White? Is that the?
Not his name, just
Right, I understand, oh, yeah, but I mean so, what's
Main
Kurt's
Street
position?
downtown development
Street
manager.
Waxhaw Main Street Program.
So that position will now become this position.
Well, it's semantics. He's called a number of different things. But we can make it
So
consistent.
let's clarify.
Yeah, that was
so it's
confusing to
consistency.
me,
Yeah,
too. What is his position?
Between now and when this comes back for final, my guess is this is going to come off consent.
correct.
So we will clarify what that title is and make it consistent throughout.
So clean that. So to your point then, Warren, under section 2, or do we add another section that section 10, that the chairman will report to the town board on a quarterly basis, just as a duty? Should probably do that. So, are we all comfortable with that?
Okay, and then back to Article 6, DI, the 6? I don't know the,
Yes. Program director.
so the program director, whomever it may be, reports to the board, this new form board, not necessarily the town manager?
No.
Doesn't say that there, though. It says that he reports to, carries out the duties
Of
that the
the-
board of directors require.
Well,
So,
shall manage the daily operations of the, we'll clarify the language, but of the
Main Street Board.
Main Street Board. Implementation of the Main Street Board's policies and other duties as the town Waxhaw Main Street Board of Directors may require. So, yeah. Any other suggestions and changes? Does that clean that up? And then we're all in agreement, we'll take that off the consent agenda tonight and get another look-see. Okay.
overall question, by creating this obviously goes to the end, the map that's indicated there, the green border and so forth. How does it, or what do we do to address Curitan, town center, any other development economic-wise in the town? I know that there's a small section here that references that they could consult with the town board as requested or as needed, but is there another approach that we're going to use for the rest of Waxhaw?
I don't know, is there? We haven't, I mean, that's on us as to how we want to attack economic development across the town. Right now, we've been singularly focused on, with Buxton. This is an attempt to get Main Street, but that's on us to I know we've got Chris Platay starting to work with us, but I think the feeling was we got so many things that are on the plate that have to get done for commercial entities to look at Waxhaw that I think that's where Kurt was, or not Kurt, Chris was pushing. Maybe you want to.
Yeah, so my recollection is that the Main Street allows your Main Street manager, just as a generic term, to spend 10%, I think it's 10% of his or her time on things outside of Main Street. So that's where Kurt's work with Buxton has come in. So that's the retail side. Chris Platay will tell you that they really don't do a whole lot with retail. They focus on industrial. So he's our industrial, although we haven't identified any locations for that sort of development. So we're in the infantile stages of really going outside and being serious about economic development outside of downtown and outside of retail with what Buxton's doing.
When we sat down with him, he basically said, get your comp plan across the finish line, get your UDO done, so it's very clear to these commercial entities where they might be able to land. You're doing the work on your vision and mission, but now you got to clarify it in terms of what's where and what's allowed kind of thing, and so we got to get that work done. Because the opportunity is there. He gets a request a week in terms of commercial space, but we don't have anything designated per se right now. So what would you like to do with that? In terms of, do you want to come back to it after we get these things done, or you're making a point and we need to come back to it, keep it
Just making
on the radar?
a point of, would they possibly conflict in the future? Or would they work seemingly together, or how would that work? And then here's my last question.
How they work, my ideal would be that Chris Platay doesn't sleep a wink. He's working 24 hours a day. Right now, he has no reason to come to Waxhaw, in essence. I mean, that's where we are.
And then the last, back under the general rules, Article 3, it says, this board shall be governed by the ordinances of the town of Waxhaw, the laws of the state of North Carolina, and these rules and procedures. Since we're in the Main Street program, is there Main Street program guidelines or rules that we have to follow or adhere to also?
Their request was to put these rules of procedures in place, and we're following their format. So,
There's a format, but no specific rules.
correct.
Okay.
And just to be clear, one of the first actions would be address the map. Okay.
I have one
Oh, yep.
comment. In reference to the map, this whole issue is talking about, that's the title of the procedure, is Main Street Board of Directors. And what do we define Main Street? What I define as Main Street is downtown commercial. Period. If there's another section where we go, as Mayor Pro Tem Hunt said, up to Curitan or other areas, I think that's a different,
Correct.
it's two different things.
Yeah. Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions, comments? Very good. Well, the next item up is Planning Board procedural improvements, and delighted to welcome Mr. Jim Prosser from the Council of Governments. Come on up, Jim. Don't try to sneak in the back and hide on
Join
us.
the party.
Join the party. Fred,
Okay.
Jim, how do you do this? How do you turn it over to you?
Try to make this as painless as possible.
One more for you. I'm so used to getting feedback now that we speak, you can't, nothing comes back at us, so I can't tell if you can hear us or not.
Start off by saying two things. One is we've covered a lot of the information in the prior discussions today about what to do with all the other boards, and that I've got to tell you that when Jim Warner, Commissioner Warner and I met with Warren and Mr. Prosser, quite a lot of good information was presented by the Council of Government. The first question I have for the board, though, is what do we want the planning board to do? And to that end, there is a list here, it's an Excel spreadsheet, and it's what the state legislature allows. And what do we want our planning board to do?
Go ahead. You,
Mayor, Commissioners, Jim Prosser with Central Line. And I hope Michelle Nance, our planning director, will be joining us, but just in response to and getting this discussion started, let me just preface the discussion with a couple of thoughts. First of all, experience tells us that all communities, all governing bodies really want to focus on how do they manage their time and risk in terms of the work they're doing. How do they do that most efficiently and effectively? And certainly your staff plays a big role in helping you accomplish your goals and objectives. But boards and commissions play a really special role there too, and a much different role than your staff. And I saw earlier that, or heard earlier that you're clearly making a lot of steps in moving in that direction of providing real intentionality regarding the role that your boards and commissions play. And that's really important because the function that they serve is going to change over the course of time, and it's going to change based upon the direction that you provide. Remember, we've talked about this before, but the fact is you're elected. You're elected. Each one of you are elected. People trust your judgment, and they expect you to exercise that judgment in a wide variety of ways, including how you provide direction to your manager, but boards and commissions as well. And part of that direction is just this discussion that has been laid out here by Commissioner Burrell. Taking a look at the role that you want your planning board to play, especially as you're looking at a couple of factors, including the projected growth for your community, and as well as just what you've observed in your role as elected commissioners or elected officials. What have you seen, what have you experienced that will help guide changes to the expectations and to the role that you want the planning board to play? And in many cases, what you will end up with is a much broader role for your planning board. But as you introduce that broader role to help you and help facilitate, you're going to want to provide certain guidelines. Now, there's a lot of different ways to do this. We can make it real detailed, complex, or we can provide more clarity by just starting off with a discussion. If this is acceptable to you, I'd encourage you to have a discussion right now, if you're comfortable with it, about what worries you about the issues that you will be dealing with, that the planning board will be dealing with, that your community will be experiencing as you grow, and not only the new growth, but also redevelopment as well. So what worries you? And so as you think about that, as you ponder that, I'll introduce Michelle Nance, who is here to be the brains on this side of the discussion, because she has much more experience than I do in the planning world. Michelle is our planning director. She's former planning director for the city of Gastonia. She's served as the president of the North Carolina APA, American Planning Association, and she serves a number of communities, helping you with just this type of issue. So I'd like Michelle to join us for this discussion, but we'd like to start off with something pretty basic. What worries you? What are your big concerns about the challenges facing Waxhaw? We will use that to recommend some next steps, and we could even talk about some of those recommendations yet today about where you want to start on these next steps to help inform a more intentional approach to firming up the role of the planning board and the staff and the town board. Does that make sense? And Commissioner Burrell, is that responsive to what we had talked about?
Yeah, and once we get into what the legislature allows and what we already have in the rules and procedures, and some of those things, I know right now our planning board doesn't do. We don't let them do it, but yet it's in the rules and procedures. So there's no clear direction given by this board as to what we really wanted to do. It's conflicting information.
And again, it sounds like, I'll take that, one translation is, what worries you is the fact that you may be not optimizing the use of the planning board right now. And certainly there's always concerns about it, and there probably was in the past. Well, if we delegate that to them, what's our, well, we don't need to answer that today, but it is good to say, here's what we worry about. And then Michelle and her staff with experience, we have some very specific ideas even today. We want to hear from you first about how to move ahead. The one concern I will tell you that we have as we do this work, if you try to get it perfect when you leave here tonight, if you try to get it perfect before you take that first step, nothing will happen.
Right.
If you say, let's make sure, if we're going to change direction, let's make sure we begin to move in that direction, but build in some safeguards that allow us to make adjustments over the time. And the question is really, where do we start? Where do you want to start? And often where you want to start is just having us observe, take a look at what you're currently delegating to the planning board, what you're not, making some recommendations, but also observing them in their operations and looking at just tweaks, because chances are you're going to need to do more of the tweaks, and that'll produce more results than massive changes. There may be some big changes, but more likely there's going to be a lot of small changes that'll help you move in the right direction and gain, and this is important, what you want to gain is speed. You want to be able to process applications effectively and efficiently, because what hurts you in terms of your ability to compete for development of the nature that you want is if you have a reputation, if any community has a reputation for taking too long, the highly desired developers will never come to your community. If you've got that reputation, they'll never come in. And it may be, and you may not even be aware of that. I'm not saying that's happening here. I don't know that, but that does happen in other communities.
Just what's up on the screen right now, if you look at the current duties and powers, 2.1, it says the primary objective of the planning board is to develop and maintain a continuing cooperative planning program to benefit the residents of the town of Waxhaw. Now, we don't do that. The planning board does not, at this point, actively develop any cooperative planning program. Do we want them to do that, or do we want our staff to do that?
Well, not that it keeps me up at night,
No, I know.
but let's cut to the chase. We're dealing with a UDO that was written in 2002.
Correct.
We've got a comp plan that hasn't been kept current that goes back to 2009. We're changing both of those dramatically up in the game. It seems like if you're going to make that kind of transformational change, you have to have the structure behind it, both at the planning board and then how does the staff work
Right.
with the planning board. We've operated a certain way since, forever. Having sat on the planning board and just sat there and just continually getting frustrated when you just say, to heck with it.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of, and that dates back to 2011, 2012. So this has been going on for a while. So while that may have been aspirational when we tried to put that together last year, now some of the mechanisms, I think we probably thought we'd move the comp plan a little bit faster. And we ran around the track just one too many times. We're going to bring that across the finish line now. But that's, to me, it's more of a, it's more of a change in the way we do business, and we're going to put new tools out there come January, the first of the year. And are we ready for that? I don't know what that means either.
Yeah,
What
right.
are we ready for, to be honest?
And I agree with you. I don't know either, and that's why we're asking these questions, is because I think that everything that's in 2.1 and 2.2 is very good. Do we have the right people on the planning board with the right set of skills to do those things? Do they know how to work with the staff? Does the staff know how to work with them? And I think the answer is right now, no. So, and that's why when Mr. Prosser came in before with the other people from the Council of Governments, they looked at these things and they said, and I'll let you say what your proposal was and how to, those first steps. And that was your sort of 6-month program that you described.
I hear from others.
So when we're searching out members for, let's just say, the ABC board or the OAC, we're looking for specific skill sets. The ABC board, obviously, business acumen, running retail operations, managing people, they come with those skill sets and apply them. When we're getting people for the Board of Adjustments or for the planning board, what's the skill set we're looking for? What knowledge base do they have? And you asked what my concerns were. The legal rights, the legal wrongs. Are they making decisions based on a preference versus the legal definition or where they're at on that?
So where are their boundaries?
Right.
And there's two answers to that, John. Right now, the planning board has 3 attorneys on it. Okay? But at some of the meetings, their questions seem to go far afield beyond, where they really could go because they're not.
When you say
That
that
kind
to
of
me,
attorney.
what immediately pops in my head in my line of work, we're on the side of the road and somebody comes running up and yells, "I'm a doctor."
Right,
He's a foot doctor.
right. Understand.
He's not going to help me.
Works for medic, just by the way.
Right.
He's not going to help me. So what kind of, an attorney's, there's a bazillion attorneys, I would guess, in different fields and so forth. Is there a planning attorney? Is there a legal attorney? Somebody that can answer the questions to keep the planning board and us out of harm's way on the legal side of it, is my concern.
Okay, and I'm going to go right back to Mr. Prosser because he knew those things when we talked, and his suggestion was, I'll be quiet.
Well, again, we're going to suggest that the skill set is much more related to the experience that they have. So we'd recommend that you at least take a look at making sure you have someone with maybe a business background, maybe somebody that works with and is part of a homeowners association. So it's a different level, different types of experience. But the other attributes you're going to be looking for is there are some major legal risks involved, even in the process of the hearings related to land use. And so you're going to want to select people that are comfortable and willing to attend the training that the state and we provide that training and others training. And you're going to need also to look at a chair that's very comfortable playing a role as to follow a set of procedures within an established process for hearings, because one little misstep in that process could put you in jeopardy in terms of spending a lot more time, staff time, and your time, and maybe attorney cost in recovering from that error. So you're going to need that type of discipline applied. Does that respond to your question?
It does, but then also my concern goes further with the Board of Adjustment, at least my interpretation or thought of the Board of Adjustment being a quasi-judicial. They're making a judgment based on, I would assume, some kind of legal standing, statutory, and so forth, and they would probably need a higher level of skill set or training.
Absolutely. And that was part of the discussions we had at the same time, that we have a Board of Adjustment that we're not really paying much attention to, and they could get us farther down the road into harm's way than even a planning board can. And, but the COG's proposal was, if we start with the planning board, there would be some specific items in a proposal, but basically what it boiled down to, and you can elaborate, was that for 6 months, there would be an outside attorney who has this kind of experience, the plannings, zoning kind of attorney, almost like the gentleman that's engaged in the UDO. He is a zoning attorney in Charlotte, along with an outside planner who is, an accredited planner, but not one of our planners. And the 6-month program, since we're starting afresh or anew, would be before each meeting, the attorney and the planner would meet with the chairman and go over the agenda and explore the different problems or pitfalls or things that should be looked at before the meeting. They would attend the meeting. And after the meeting is over, they would debrief the chairman, how did you do? How well did the meeting go? And the last couple meetings I've been to on the planning board, the questions get far afield and too far afield. But that kind of outside legal and planning expertise starts bringing them back in. And 6 months was suggested. Maybe it'll take longer, maybe it'll take less time. But at the end of that period, you have a chair, a vice chair, and a board that's really trained, and you have results that are being brought back to us. How well have we done? And next year, maybe as the board turns over a little bit, we only have to do it for 2 months. Because we've started, and we do that both for the planning board and the Board of Adjustment. So I'll let you.
Just two quick refinements on that. We probably wouldn't need an attorney at all of those meetings. We would only consult with an attorney, and probably would be your attorney. Only consult if there was a question that we were not comfortable addressing. And a lot of times you can get advice even from the state and others. So we know resource you wouldn't necessarily have to spend a lot of money on. And the debrief is more really about asking the chair how things went. What did they think worked well? The pre-meetings are important because that's when we can establish, here's what's in bounds, here's what's out of bounds. And that we can't tell people, and certainly we're not intended to tell people what questions they should ask and not, but we should say, we can say, here's what generally is going to be useful and appropriate in these cases, and keep them away from entering into the record issues that are not going to be that relevant for a final decision. Because as soon as you introduce those into the record, it's harder to defend that later on that wasn't part of the fact, one of the factors that was decisive in you making a decision.
I have a question, a concern, and this goes back to what we were talking about before as far as one person on more than one board. And I understand why we had to do this as far as the expertise, but my question is, perhaps we need to spend more emphasis on recruitment to get the right people in, because if we do make a decision to put one person on more than one board, eventually they're going to leave, so that's going to leave a gap of a subject matter expert on 2 boards. So I think the emphasis to me is critical to in recruitment and recruiting the right people, and better maybe than we have.
It's always good to have some recruitment criteria set up so that, the folks that you're looking at know what the requirements are and know whether the expectations are coming in. And then to have some alternates, especially on the Board of Adjustment, who may not meet every month, because they may not have a case. but having some alternates there you can call on is a good practice as well.
One of the practices, and the answer to your question is yes. You're absolutely right. One of the characteristics of high-performing boards is that they spend a lot of time interviewing and selecting your board and commission members. You set up criteria and we can help with that, even sample questions, criteria, but you advertise that. You also provide training and in some cases the requirement is that you do attend the training. That's part of the requirement. If you're going to continue on the board, you have to attend that training. But they do a lot of your work for you, and if they're given the tools to be efficient and effective, that's going to save you time and manage risk.
Couple thoughts or comments. One, you highlighted something where you start talking about skills, and you said you went through 2 experiences, and that it's not lost on me that in the town with some of the big subdivisions we have, that if you're navigating their covenants and bylaws and things like that, that you're probably developing some expertise, and we probably haven't spent much time thinking about that, but there's some complexity there. To Commissioner Stewart's point, that we could use as a recruiting mechanism. The second thing I want to, or mention that I want to make is that I think we should probably ask staff, what do they see from the plan, how the planning board's executing, and specifically how do they have to prepare them, et cetera, because they might be picking up some nuggets that we don't see that makes their job a little bit more difficult or a little easier. Third thing that I would challenge you on, I think if you want to find out what to do at the planning board, somebody could take a good look at what the state legislature's focused in on in terms of what they're trying to take away in terms of authority from municipalities, because they're basically saying you guys aren't doing your job, so we're going to do it for you. And there's probably some lessons learned there as to where we could improve what we're doing on the planning board, and then defend ourselves, quite honestly, because what they're fighting is exactly what you said. Everybody's going astray and kind of weighing in on whatever the heck they want to weigh in on. And so we could probably, just the last 2 years, we could probably learn some things there. Just a thought. And then last but not least, would welcome, not necessarily today, there's been talk about maybe the Board of Adjustment could be a responsibility within a planning board. Some towns do that, some don't. I don't have a dog either way in that hunt. But it'd be interesting to see where it works, where it doesn't, and why you might do it, given that we get, 1 or 2 a year?
2 last year.
Yeah, 2 last year, and so it's hard to keep in defense of them, why go through all this training if I'm only going to get together once a year, kind of thing. It's just, that's hard.
And sometimes I think we force it through the board, planning board rather than the Board of Adjustments.
Yeah.
We have like
That's a good point.
the fast food thing up on, in Howard's Mill. I think that should have just gone through the Board of Adjustments. It's one corner only one corner in the whole town that could be, but we tried to do a text amendment. Well, we don't need to do a text amendment. If you got somebody who wants to put a fast food restaurant there, then put it through the Board of Adjustment.
Cost of variance.
One of the things you mentioned is that there are a lot of different parties involved in the growth, from the elected to appointed boards to the staff. And one thing that we found that's worked really well is doing one-on-one interviews with folks that are part of this confidentially, where we basically just get an understanding of what they're seeing and what's working well, maybe what needs some improvement. And then we can report that back in a summary format that doesn't point out, who said what, but it's really just to see what is the consensus here? What are people seeing on their individual boards as issues and opportunities?
And we're talking about the planning board members, staff as well. The basic approach is that we don't believe in solutions in search of problems. So we're not going to say, here's what you should do. We'd rather take some time to listen carefully to what you all say are problems. And believe it or not, it's pretty typical that you'll agree that these are shared view of what the problems are. That allows us to recommend some starting points. And that really is our recommendation. You start with one-on-one phone interviews. It doesn't take that much time. I think we did that before some work we did here. We find it very, very helpful to do that. And then attend some meetings, do the pre-meeting and post-meeting debriefs, and then you just continue to refine. You can continue to ratchet down what's not working, get rid of that, find out more of what is working, and develop systems that fit for you, that are designed to based upon what your needs are. So it's a very methodical approach. It's very systematic. It takes a little bit longer to get started as a result of that, but you're more likely to see results that are sustained over a long period of time. And then it's really about continuous improvement. That's what you're interested in. We want to work ourselves out of a job, and we want.
No, you want to work yourself to the next job.
That's right. Well, that's what we find, though, is that boards that do this find that they just begin to operate at higher and higher levels, and you get more done, and you get more done of what you want to see within the community.
You mentioned the Board of Adjustment and not having many meetings, and that is very difficult, and we could look at, what are the pros and cons of having two separate boards, and bring that back to you, talk to some folks that are doing the combined Board of Adjustment Planning Board, see what their experiences are, what they think are, the good and the bad, and then bring it back.
That's great. Just another curiosity thought. You'll be doing interviews and questions and problem statements based upon the as-is model, knowing we've got a rather dramatic change in the 2B model. Obviously, would want you to design to the 2B along the way, and show us how these two kind of interconnect, so we feel comfortable we're moving to where we're going, instead of we fix the past and then next month we've got the future and oops, we got to start over.
Understood.
Just what can we do to answer the question, what do we want the planning board to do? Is that going to come up in your process?
Yes.
Okay, so you're going to hold us accountable to answer that question. Okay.
We will likely start with what the statute says they should be doing, and we're going to ask you to, from there, what are you not comfortable with, and why are you not comfortable with what the statute says they should be doing? And we'll recommend methods to address those concerns that you may have, but still, we want to put them in a position to fulfill the responsibilities, the full responsibilities under state law. That's going to give you, optimize their effectiveness and your effectiveness. But if there are some concerns, some risks that need to be managed, we'll identify methods to manage those risks.
So do we think this is a good idea? Consensus to, okay.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch.
Yep. Okay. Thank you very much.
And
Thank you.
we'll move at the speed of, kind of look at this as the same speed, Jim, as we were doing the true budgeting. We didn't know exactly what the problem was, and as we got into it, we kind of had to pick up speed because we realized that there were a lot of tentacles. So if you use that same thought process and discipline of, I think that worked out very well for us.
We will do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both for coming down. And as you drive back, make sure you contact the Charlotte Regional Transportation Organization, tell them the traffic problem that you had getting down here and going back.
Michael Johnson did ask me to give you his best and thank you for your contributions to the meeting last week.
So he told you, huh? Okay, next up, last item on the agenda is the Museum of the Waxhaws, combination of Natalie and Commissioner Fitzgerald will bring us up to date as to where things are there and possibly next steps.
All right. Good afternoon. As we all remember, the town of Waxhaw did sign a letter of intent with the Museum of the Waxhaws earlier this year, and that was a non-legally binding document to simply explore pursuit of a special use park and joint recreation programming, some shared maintenance and site improvements, and expansion of the Carolina Thread Trail. Those are the main elements of that LOI, just as a refresher. After the LOI was signed, we went into due diligence and formulation of a draft agreement. During our due diligence, however, it came to light that the museum had some administrative needs that were beyond our understanding at our initial drafting of the LOI. So at the direction of the town board, we slowed down to take a deeper look at those needs at the museum. And so that's a big reason we're here today. The result of that, again, was a pause in the agreement and due diligence to focus our due diligence at a greater level on administration. And as a result of that, the museum has improved the documentation of their HR practices, and this is a binder that kind of speaks to that. It does have a lot of their general practices in there. However, we do feel there may be more work to be done. Commissioner Fitzgerald, do you want to add to that, or would you like me to keep going?
Yeah, keep on going, but basically we found there was a lot more in depth than we ever suspected.
Okay, so those administrative needs are rather, some of them rather fundamental, and some that may require more of a champion to see them through to completion. And as you may know, the museum is based primarily on a volunteer structure with a sizable board. They do not really have a full-time champion to pull those loose ends together. And they do have some decentralized decision-making. The vision for any town or Museum of the Waxhaws partnership will need to be examined at a broader level than we previously had anticipated. And one example would be taking a rather in-depth look at how their mission, vision, and values match to the town of Waxhaw's mission, vision, and values. So the way forward, we continue our due diligence, but we broaden that due diligence. And we have had several meetings, some elected officials and myself, with key members of the museum organization. And we have definitely identified the need for administrative due diligence that would include possible bringing in of third parties to audit the organization to assist them in formalizing in some areas that they have been informal to date, as well as a recommendation, I would say, of a viable staffing structure that probably differs from their current operations. Encouragement of investment in a full-time champion that can assist them in bringing their needs together. Help in formulating a realistic strategic plan for the long term. And also just improvement through possible outside parties such as SCORE counselors, the Waxhaw entrepreneurs, and other outside consultants. They have hired a CPA to assist them in formalizing, so that is really good. And basically, what we need to do on the administrative side that has, I believe, has been a theme, is to determine if the Museum of the Waxhaws is a viable partner for us at this time, and if not, what needs to be in place in order for the town to move forward on the agreement. Also, on the facility side, we were starting our due diligence on the facility side, but with the administrative needs that popped up, we switched gears. So I would definitely recommend a continued due diligence on that side. We have a great inspections team on staff, and so I would be speaking with Dennis. Spoke to the inspections team briefly. They would be capable of doing a compliance and safety audit of museum facilities just to make sure that those facilities would be ready for general public use should a town partnership arise. And they are in a position to also do an ADA assessment as well. So in the future, we can also, with all of this exploration, we can look at a broader picture on what is the relationship with the town look like long-term as far as the Museum of the Waxhaws is concerned. And we may find that we end up with something a little bit different than we started out pursuing. It would be very helpful for staff if we could receive help from the board in determining a few things. One, for the board to discuss and basically come up with a shared vision on what the non-negotiable elements of a town and Museum of the Waxhaws partnership are. So what do we not negotiate on? The negotiable elements of a town/Museum of the Waxhaws partnership. Long-term vision for the town and the museum beyond what the Parks and Rec Master Plan has mandated. And clarity and direction on the extent the town is willing to go to support the museum and strengthening them as an organization and partner. So those are the 4 elements.
I'd like to interject a few words, if I could.
Yes, sir.
I pulled together Fred and the mayor, and we kind of discussed a meeting by ourselves, and we discussed the booklet that they gave us, and there was some definite elements that we need to clear up before we go into a partnership, and our feelings were that there is a board member at large on their executive board that I think if we're going to be a partner that we should fulfill that need, that maybe one of our board members or somebody that works for the town would be that at-large member and would report to this board. The other thing is that their facilities are in some bad conditions, and we need a full facility audit to find out how bad conditions they are. If they're safe, are they ADA pliable, how bad are they? Because they've been pushing things off because they didn't have funding to repair them. The other thing is their financial has been all over the board. It's whenever they get money, they spend it. And that they don't have a capital funding budget. They don't have a 5-year plan. We need to do a full financial audit so that we know what we're getting into, just like you would buy a piece of property. I think that is just a wise thing to do. I think we need to direct the town manager to do that because it's going to cost us some money, both the facility audit and the financial audit. They did have personnel problems, and I think they will continue having personnel problems unless we put a stronger framework together for them. And I think that's part of the problem. They have a mentality of a country club mentality. And I'm not trying to embarrass the museum, but they do. They even admit to it. They have a vision, mission, and value statement is probably from when they created the museum. It is outdated. It doesn't tie into our vision, mission, and value statement. It should be something similar, but doesn't have to be exact. They exclude different parts of the settlement of North Carolina on purpose. I don't know if it's on purpose or intentional or oops, but there was Native Americans here and there was African Americans here, and they exclude those. and I don't think that should be excluded because a good portion of our community are Native Americans and African Americans. That is part of our mix.
So in the spirit of this being an open meeting, and being streamed right now, kind of flipping this a little bit. We need an audit and a financial audit, and that's probably done best by the outside. I want to ask you a question, just as a matter of record. Our outside agency strategy has been to have people present their books, and we suggest that how would you suggest we move forward on that? Because I don't want anybody to think that we're accusing them of anything or any financial malfeasance or anything like that.
Well, for us to access their books and for us to do a audit of their books is different than what we've done with other externally. So
Correct.
we have to get permission from them to do that, and as well as get permission to, I wrote down facility audit. So I think we're still at the point where we're having board members sit down and have conversations about these
Yeah.
sorts of things.
I just don't want to get too far before
Yeah.
we,
I would
from
make-
your standpoint, what do we really need to have in place to enable even to look at going to the
If
next
the board were interested in doing that, there's another conversation with with elements of the Museum of the Waxhaw's board to say, yeah, okay, we'll go along with that or not.
So that's what I was going to key in on. The external agency funding, I hear what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying, but I think this is kind of external agency kind of a couple levels higher, because we're going to enter into a letter of intent, a memo of understanding, something we don't do with the rest of the external agencies. We just hand them the money. Now, so the board's the museum's a 501c3?
Yes.
Okay, do we have a requirement? I mean, with that, there's certain requirements through the government. Are they not holding up the end of the 501c3?
That's a good question.
That's a great question.
So, I mean, I went through that process with an organization, 49-something pages, a lawyer, and a lot of money to get that status, but there's all kinds of filing requirements, updates, and that you have to keep the government in the loop on, so,
On an annual basis.
correct. So, that to me would be the fundamental starting point, not just with the museum, but any of our external agency requests. And I don't know that, do we even require that for any of our external agencies?
So just like the UDO from 2002 and a few other things, the external agency policy and practice was drafted and never signed into and accepted and it's sitting out there from 2009. So we had thoughts, but we didn't complete it. And so I think you put that in the strategic plan for this year, that you're going to clean that up and we're going to have a policy, and we're not going to allow that anymore, kind of thing. Commissioner Stewart.
Best case scenario, we get to a point where we are into the agreement. What are our expectations for that property that the town will use?
The expectations are basically opening the acreage up to the general public to allow them to use the green space. Some possible trail development in the wooded area of the property that would be linked into the Carolina Thread Trail. And then also some use of their facility for joint recreational programming. Those are the main elements that we were exploring as far as town usage of the property.
And that would be on a regular daily basis, or?
Yes, it would be on a regular basis. The actual structure, I think we were limiting to a number of uses per year, which was more than adequate. But the property itself could be treated as a special use park. So it opens up essentially 21 acres to the public. And this again is something that our master plan had asked us to pursue, which kind of got us rolling in exploring the options.
That's at the current document that we have written. But we could do even furthermore to make it a cultural center for the whole area, not only for the town, but for all of Western Union County, or all of Union County, matter of fact, because it is, I think, a real gem that has really rough but it could be really something special.
And as we found out at Town Hall Day, the state has some interest in doing that as well. And they asked us to consider.
And what I've witnessed with the museum is there's a definite openness to multicultural programming, so based on past conversations.
So what do you need?
I'm still back to
Yep.
elements of this board, reaching out to elements of their board and really sitting down and, Natalie asked the question, what needs to be in place to move forward with partnership and funding, if that's a goal of this board. And, if we go through, if we were able to do a financial audit and facility audit, just doing those doesn't clear the way for funding. I mean, it depends on what comes back within those audits. What do they reveal? So, I mean, there's a lot of questions to be answered. But I think that's probably done better with a smaller group to bring back to the full board. That'd be my recommendation.
Okay.
And I think a small group on our behalf and a small group on their behalf, because they brought, when we had a meeting, they brought, was 10 people? 10,
Oh,
10,
God,
12
yeah.
people?
We didn't have enough chairs.
It was too many people. We need their executive board, and that's it. We don't need any of their other boards, because they're all volunteer.
So my immediate thought is, again, we don't really have, you said it's 2009, we haven't ever approved it, but we did approve, or we did put in the budget specific money for each of the external funding to go ahead and fund them for this year, working on getting it straight for next year. And of course, specifically with the museum, that we get that memo of understanding, letter of intent worked out. But definitely the external funding just across the board for whatever we've given money to this past go-around, whether it be the volunteer fire department. Again, are we holding everybody to at least a minimal standard? Where, again, I consider the museum a higher standard with the letter of intent, the museum, the memo of use and all of that good stuff. But I think we should, we've already put that money in the budget under the previous way we did it. Go ahead and fund it and work to improve it and get it better for the next budget cycle.
Well, I think that was the intent, and then there were some issues raised which caused us to meet, and what Paul and Natalie are sharing, or Commissioner Fitzgerald and Director Jackson are sharing, are now it's upon us to close on, we know what these issues are, and we have to reach agreement. We're going to go after them, small group to small group, or small elements to small elements, kind of thing. There were some specific issues raised which caused that meeting to occur. That binder that she held up, or you held up,
Yep.
wasn't even in existence, part of the problem. So wait a minute.
But if we take any other external agency, do we hold that microscope over them and say, do you have these documents?
But we weren't preparing to do a partnership with them.
Right.
And we weren't preparing to put them on a straight line item on our budget every year. That's what we were preparing to do.
Correct, and we're still preparing to do that, but we
If-
put them in the external agency this year
Correct.
under a budget item that we did last year and the year before. I get that, but we've already allotted that funds. The funds we have allotted were not in alignment with this memo of understanding, this line item budget. It's, I would assume, going to be a greater amount when that comes into play for future use. Am I wrong on that, or?
Suffice it to say, 3 members of the board were sufficiently nervous to tell the town manager, hang on a second, let's get some stuff in place. And maybe we could take John through that at an informational meeting or whatever. Again, not raising any issue, not questioning or anything, it's just what was presented raised an issue. That's all. Commissioner Stewart.
I would ask that, I agree with a smaller group, sometimes, quite often can come to a decision quicker than the masses, but I would ask that the board members that are in there to update the ones that are not in there on a regular basis, because a lot of this right now is new to me.
If I may add also, as far as the amount, that would be determined at the end of the due diligence period, which was paused due to the information that we received. So once we conduct the full facilities audit, which we believe we can handle in-house, we will be able to give you a better idea of what the annual maintenance cost would be to the town, so for your consideration. So that was, when I give the initial LOI presentation, I said we'd come back with some numbers on what exactly this would cost the town long-term, so that you could either say that's great for the town, or no, it isn't.
So then, to my point, though, the line item amount, the budgeted amount for this year was not based on that.
No, it wasn't. That was based on their application and their request at the time. And because we were pursuing the agreement and the due diligence, it was just business as usual for the external agency this year. Your more targeted number would have been the following year.
So you two are the elements currently. I mean, what's a reasonable timeframe to keep?
Quite frankly, I don't think there's a time frame available until some of the basic questions are answered. And Natalie mentioned three. One is alignment of mission, vision, and values, which was my most important concern. And then you have the financial audit. That is a big concern also. And then a physical audit. What are the structures?
So that's on the bigger, but
Yeah.
to Commissioner or Mayor Pro Tem Hunt's point, there was the other aspect of it was the operational budget aspect of it that was part of the outside agency funding. So that's an operational side of it to actually, are we going to take that first step? What's it going to take that first step and then continue to go to the questions? That's what there's
Yeah.
multiple parts here that are moving, that's all.
But in my estimation, since we are in a negotiation, we've communicated those three things to the board of the Museum of the Waxhaws, and it's now in their court. I wouldn't move forward, personally, as the member of this board, I would not move forward to distributing the $18,000 that's been budgeted until they answer those questions. That's just me.
No, and I don't necessarily disagree, but I think what Warren was suggesting is make sure they understand the questions at the small group level, because there was 9 or 10 people
Yeah.
in that room talking about climbing telephone poles
Yeah.
and the like. I mean, it was all over the map. I mean,
Yeah.
you were there, you know what
Yeah.
I'm talking about. Again, not that I'm against anybody climbing telephone poles, but that discussion was all over the map.
Right.
That's all. Okay. So you guys will
We,
see
I
if
think
you
it-
can get them to
right.
answer the questions.
Right, and basically for, Commissioner Stewart and, Mayor Pro Tem Hunt, John and Brenda, I don't think we should move forward until we pose those three elements to them. These are the things that need to be attended to. And if they don't attend to them, that's their choice.
In actually 4, we asked them to give us, in front of that, would you give us your operating budget?
Again, I would just like to, with all due respect to
Yeah.
all of you, voice my concern. We had 10 external fundings. Have we applied the same rule to each of them? And if you haven't, I think it's
That's
a bad way to go down the road.
Okay.
Because we have the volunteer fire department. Have you asked their mission, visions, and values?
It was
We asked Red
the
Cross
first point,
for money.
the first point, the budget.
Sorry?
The budget was the key driver.
Okay. So we've given money to the Red Cross. Did we get any of their mission, vision,
no,
and values?
just that first question is what I'm getting at.
We haven't received it yet.
We haven't received the budget yet. We have received those kind of documents from everybody else. That is the criteria that Warren's been using. We're
Okay.
asking for
Well,
that
yeah,
first one.
that's-
And I'm good with
The other
that.
part is to the partnership, that's all.
Yeah.
1 + 3
Okay.
equals.
But a good question, and perhaps as we move, into the future, if we have a situation that arises again with someone else other than those we've been dealing with, we should apply that same level of scrutiny if we suspect there may be something going on there that we should attend to. In other words, make sure we're aligning ourselves with someone that shares our values.
Clear? Okay. All right. We've made it through the agenda with 10 minutes to spare, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.